Renowned Laodicean xenobiologist Taurus made a decision that would ignite an interstellar war. He adopted a human child. In the year 2045, during a routine scientific expedition to Earth, Taurus encountered an abandoned infant amidst the rubble of a global conflict. The child, later named Scott Tucker, lay helpless and alone, a symbol of humanity's resilience in the face of devastation. Driven by an insatiable scientific curiosity and a desire to study human development, Taurus made the fateful choice to secretly bring Scott aboard the Laodicean research vessel. This act violated numerous interstellar treaties and Laodicean ethical guidelines, setting in motion a chain of events that would reshape galactic politics. As Scott grew, Taurus conducted extensive experiments and observations, meticulously documenting the child's physical and cognitive development. The Laodicean scientist kept Scott's existence hidden from both his crew and the Galactic Council, creating a cocoon of secrecy around the human child. Over the years, Scott's exposure to alien technology and environments led to the development of enhanced abilities, further fueling Taurus's fascination with human potential. On Scott's 18th birthday, a simple mistake changed the course of galactic history. The young man accidentally activated a distress beacon, alerting Earth authorities to his location. The signal pierced through space, carrying with it the weight of decades of secrecy and violation. Earth's response was swift and furious. The human government demanded Scott's immediate return, hurling accusations of kidnapping and illegal human experimentation at the Laodicean civilization. The Laodicean government, caught off guard and unaware of Taurus's actions, initially denied all allegations, further inflaming tensions between the two species. As diplomacy failed, both sides began mobilizing their military forces. Earth, still recovering from its own global conflict, formed alliances with other species who harbored grievances against the Laodiceans. The Laodiceans, in turn, called upon their long-standing allies for support. The Galactic Council's attempts at mediation proved futile, and the situation rapidly deteriorated into a full-scale interstellar conflict. Caught in the crossfire, Scott found himself torn between his human heritage and his Laodicean upbringing. He struggled to understand his place in the galaxy-wide war he inadvertently caused, grappling with the weight of his dual identity. Taurus, the scientist who raised him, now faced severe consequences for his actions, including the looming threat of execution for treason. As the conflict spread like wildfire across the stars, other alien races were forced to choose sides. The delicate balance of galactic politics began to shift, with centuries-old alliances crumbling and new ones forming in their wake. Earth's military, though technologically inferior, demonstrated unexpected tactical prowess and adaptability in early skirmishes, catching their alien adversaries off guard. Desperate to level the playing field, the human government established a top-secret program to reverse engineer alien technology captured in battle. Meanwhile, Scott's unique abilities and intimate knowledge of both human and Laodicean cultures made him a person of interest to all factions involved in the conflict. Multiple groups launched covert operations to capture or recruit him, believing he could be the key to turning the tide of the war. As the first battles of the interstellar war unfolded across distant star systems, it became clear that humanity's future hung in the balance. The species faced two possible outcomes: extinction or ascension to become a dominant galactic power. The choices made by Scott, Taurus, and countless others would determine whether humanity would perish in the cosmic crossfire or emerge as a force to be reckoned with in the vast expanse of space. The interstellar war raged across the galaxy, but in the dimly lit war room of Earth's military command, a different kind of battle was being waged. Commander Jack Hawkins stood before a holographic display, his weathered face illuminated by the flickering blue light of star systems and fleet positions. "Operation Homecoming is our best shot at turning this war around," Hawkins said, his voice gravelly from years of barking orders. "We extract Scott Tucker. We gain an edge that could save humanity." Lieutenant Sarah Reyes stepped forward, her eyes fixed on the schematics of a sleek, otherworldly vessel. "The prototype is ready, sir. We've managed to replicate the Ladosian stealth technology with 89% efficiency. Hawkins nodded, a grim smile playing on his lips. It'll have to do. Sergeant Donovan, what's the status on our infiltration gear? Mike Donovan, a man whose very presence seemed to blend into the shadows, emerged from a corner of the room. Cutting-edge stuff, Commander. Adaptive camouflage, sound dampeners, the works. We'll be ghosts. As Earth's finest prepared for their daring mission, millions of light years away, Scott Tucker was experiencing an awakening of his own. In the sterile confines of the Ladosian research vessel, Scott's fingers danced across an alien console, streams of data flooding his mind. This is incredible, Scott muttered, his eyes widening as he absorbed information at an impossible rate. Years of exposure to alien technology had changed him in ways he was only beginning to understand. A klaxon shattered the silence, red lights bathing the corridor in an ominous glow. Scott's enhanced senses picked up the sound of rapid footsteps approaching. He knew instinctively that his time was up. Taurus burst into the room, his typically composed demeanor replaced by frantic energy. Scott, you must listen carefully, the Ladosian scientist said, his voice trembling. Everything I've done, every experiment, every observation, it was all to unlock human potential. Your potential. Scott stared at his alien guardian, a mix of emotions swirling within him. Before he could respond, Taurus pressed a small, crystalline object into his hand. This contains all my research, Taurus explained hurriedly. Use it wisely. It may be the key to ending this conflict. With a final, lingering look, Taurus turned and left, the sound of Ladosian authorities echoing in the distance. Aboard the Earth stealth ship, Commander Hawkins briefed his team one last time. Remember, our primary objective is to extract Scott Tucker. Any intel we can gather is secondary. We go in fast, we hit hard, and we get out before they know what hit them. The ship sliced through space, its advanced stealth systems rendering it invisible to Ladosian sensors. As they approached the research vessel, Lieutenant Reyes's voice cut through the tense silence. Initiating docking procedure. Prepare for breach. The moment the airlock sealed, all hell broke loose. Hawkins led the charge, his team moving with practiced precision. Ladosian security forces, caught off guard by the sudden human presence, scrambled to mount a defense. Captain Zara, alerted to the human incursion, rallied her troops. Secure the asset at all costs, she commanded, her voice cold and determined. The humans must not leave this ship with Tucker. As both human and Ladosian forces converged on his location, Scott made a split-second decision. He placed his hand on a nearby terminal, closing his eyes in concentration. The ship's systems responded to his touch, sealing bulkheads and rerouting power. Commander Hawkins and his team found themselves blocked by a series of impenetrable doors. "What the hell?" Donovan exclaimed, his infiltration tools useless against the ever-changing security protocols. Captain Zara's forces fared no better, trapped in sections of the ship as life support systems fluctuated unpredictably. "It's Tucker," she realized, fury etched on her face. "He's interfacing with the ship." Scott raced through the corridors, his mind connected to the vessel's mainframe. He could sense both teams closing in, their movements tracked by the ship's internal sensors. With a thought, he activated the launch sequence for an escape pod. As the pod detached from the research vessel, Scott took one last look at the place that had been his home for 18 years. He activated the communication system, broadcasting on all frequencies. "To the leaders of Earth and Ladosia," he began, his voice steady despite the chaos he'd left behind. "I am Scott Tucker. For too long, I've been a secret, an experiment, a potential weapon. But I choose to be something else, a mediator. I have information that could change the course of this war, and I offer myself as a neutral party to facilitate peace." The message echoed across space, reaching the highest echelons of both human and Ladosian command. On Earth, military leaders scrambled to adjust their strategy. In the halls of Ladosian power, Heated debates erupted over how to handle this unprecedented situation. As Scott's escape pod vanished into the vastness of space, both Hawkins's team and Zara's forces were left to contemplate their failure. The human soldiers retreated to their stealth ship, while the Ladosians regrouped on their vessel. Commander Hawkins stared out at the stars, his face hardened. "We may have lost the battle," he said to his team, "but this war is not nearly finished. Tucker's out there, and now everyone will be looking for him." In her command center, Captain Zara issued a galaxy-wide alert. "Find Tucker," she ordered, her voice edged with commitment. "The fate of our civilization may depend on it." As news of Scott's declaration spread, other alien races involved in the conflict began to reassess their positions. The balance of power had shifted, and the hunt for Scott Tucker, the human raised by aliens, the mediator with the power to end a war, had begun. As Scott's escape pod vanished into the depths of space, the repercussions of his bold declaration rippled across the galaxy. On Earth, in the stark confines of Military Command's war room, Admiral John Blackwell surveyed the holographic display of the conflict zones, his unwavering focus fixed on the blinking icon representing Scott Tucker's last known location. "Gentlemen, the game has changed," Blackwell announced, his voice cutting through the tense atmosphere. "Tucker is now our primary objective. We cannot allow him to fall into Ladosian hands or any other faction's grasp." Commander Jack Hawkins stood at attention, his face a mask of willpower. "What are your orders, sir?" Blackwell's eyes locked onto Hawkins. "You're to lead a covert operation to locate and retrieve Scott Tucker. Codename, Operation Stardust. Assemble your team and prepare for immediate deployment." Hawkins nodded, his mind already racing through potential strategies. "I'll need the best, sir. Lieutenant Reyes and Sergeant Donovan from the previous extraction attempt, for starters." "Granted," Blackwell replied. "I'm also assigning Dr. Marcus Reed to your team. He's our foremost expert on Ladosian physiology. His insights could be crucial in understanding Tucker's enhanced abilities." As Hawkins left to brief his team, the focus shifted to the Ladosian High Command. The sleek, crystalline architecture of their central command hub buzzed with activity as General Vex strode into the chamber, his imposing figure casting a shadow over the assembled officials. "Our failure to contain the Tucker situation is unacceptable," Vex growled, his multifaceted eyes scanning the room. "From this moment, we implement a dual strategy. First, we intensify our war efforts against Earth and its allies. Second, we dedicate significant resources to capturing Scott Tucker. Failure is not an option." The Ladosian officials murmured their assent, the gravity of the situation weighing heavily upon them. Meanwhile, light years away, Scott Tucker drifted through the vast expanse of space, his mind interfacing with the complex web of alien communication networks. Information flowed through him like a digital river, revealing the frantic search efforts of both Earth and Ladosian forces. As he processed the data, Scott's eyes widened with sudden realization. "Haven," he whispered to himself, a plan forming in his mind. The space station known as Haven loomed before him, a sprawling construct of mismatched alien architectures, operated by a coalition of smaller races seeking neutrality in the ongoing conflict. It represented Scott's best chance at finding a safe harbor to formulate his next move. Back on Earth, in a subterranean laboratory complex, Dr. Elena Rossi worked tirelessly on the reverse engineering program. Her fingers danced across holographic interfaces as she fine-tuned the adapted Ladosian shielding technology. "Run Simulation 47 Alpha," she commanded, her voice hoarse from hours of non-stop work. The air before her shimmered as a miniature Earth vessel materialized, surrounded by a faint blue aura. Simulated Ladosian weapons fire splashed harmlessly against the shield. Dr. Rossi allowed herself a small smile. "We've done it," she breathed, reaching for the communication panel. "Admiral Blackwell, the shielding technology is ready for deployment." The impact of this breakthrough became apparent in the Proxima Centauri system, where Captain Michael Torres stood on the bridge of the Earth flagship, defiant. A sea of stars stretched before him, punctuated by the ominous silhouettes of an approaching Ladosian battle group. All ships, activate Rossi's shields, Torres ordered, his voice steady despite the tension gripping his crew. As the Ladosian vessels opened fire, expecting to cut through Earth's defenses with ease, their energy weapons dissipated against the newly fortified human ships. The bridge erupted in cheers as Torres barked out his next command. Return fire! Show them what humanity is capable of! The battle that ensued would be remembered as a turning point in the war. Earth's fleet, emboldened by their newfound resilience, pressed their advantage. Ladosian ships, caught off guard by the humans' unexpected ability to withstand their attacks, fell into disarray. As news of Earth's victory spread, the political landscape of the galaxy began to shift. On the Arcturian homeworld, a world of crystalline spires and swirling nebulae, Ambassador Cathal prepared for his journey to Earth. The humans have proven themselves worthy of consideration, Cathal remarked to his aides, his tentacle-like appendages gesturing gracefully. We shall offer them our alliance and strategic expertise. The balance of power is changing, and we must position ourselves accordingly. At Haven Space Station, Scott Tucker's presence had not gone unnoticed. Zarak, a grizzled mercenary with cybernetic enhancements glinting in the station's artificial light, gathered his team in a dingy bar on the lower levels. The bounty on Tucker's head could set us up for life, Zarak growled, his mechanical eye whirring as it focused on a holographic image of Scott. We take him alive, and we'll have our pick of buyers. As Zarak and his team moved to capture Scott, chaos erupted across Haven. Scott's enhanced abilities allowed him to interface with the station's systems, sealing off corridors and rerouting power to evade his pursuers. But the chase caused significant damage, with panicked civilians caught in the crossfire. Realizing the danger he posed to the neutral station, Scott made a snap decision. He fought his way to the docking bay, commandeering a small, swift vessel. As he punched in the launch codes, a realization dawned on him. He could no longer remain neutral in this conflict. Computer, Scott said as the stolen ship broke away from Haven, set a course for Earth. It's time I picked a side. Commander Hawkins and his team arrived at Haven mere hours after Scott's departure. As they sifted through the aftermath of the chase, interviewing witnesses and analyzing security footage, Hawkins couldn't shake the feeling that they were always one step behind. Sir, Lieutenant Reyes called out, her voice tinged with excitement. We've got a lead on Tucker's stolen ship. The trajectory suggests he's headed towards Earth-controlled space. Hawkins nodded, a grim smile playing on his lips. Then that's where we're going. Prepare for immediate departure. As Operation Stardust closed in on Scott's location, the war raged on. In the Tau Ceti system, General Vex launched a massive offensive against Earth's colonies. The space above the fertile worlds became a battlefield, with ships from both sides engaged in a deadly dance of advanced weaponry and tactical maneuvers. Scott, monitoring the conflict from his ship, recognized the patterns in the Ladosian attack. His fingers flew across the ship's communication array as he transmitted tactical advice to Earth's forces. Ladosian battle formations always have a weak point in their left flank, Scott's message read. Exploit it, and you can break their lines. Earth's fleet, acting on Scott's intelligence, managed to repel the Ladosian assault. As the colonists on Tau Ceti celebrated their narrow escape, Scott knew he had made the right choice in aiding humanity. Commander Hawkins, having finally pinpointed Scott's location, prepared his team for the rendezvous. As they approached the coordinates, a priority message flashed across their screens. Hawkins's eyes widened as he read its contents. This can't be, he muttered, rereading the message to ensure he hadn't misunderstood. What is it, sir? Dr. Reed asked, leaning forward with concern. Hawkins looked up, his face grave. Taurus has escaped Ladosian custody. He's in the wind, potentially with crucial information that could change everything. As the implications of this new development sank in, Hawkins's ship established contact with Scott Tucker. The war that had begun with one Ladosian's decision to adopt a human child had evolved into a complex, galaxy-spanning conflict. And now, with Taurus on the loose and Scott finally within reach, the stage was set for the next unpredictable chapter in this interstellar saga. The asteroid mining outpost loomed before them, a jagged silhouette against the star-speckled void of the Kuiper Belt. Commander Jack Hawkins guided the stealth shuttle towards a discreet docking port, his eyes scanning for any signs of trouble. "Sensors clear, sir," Lieutenant Reyes reported from her station. "No unusual activity detected." Hawkins nodded, his heart made with tension. "Let's hope it stays that way. Everyone remember, we're here to make contact with Tucker, not start a firefight." As the team disembarked, the stark utilitarian corridors of the outpost greeted them. The air recyclers hummed softly, punctuated by the occasional echoing clang of distant mining machinery. Hawkins led the way, his hand never straying far from his sidearm. They found Scott Tucker waiting for them in an abandoned storage bay, his lean figure silhouetted against a viewport that offered a breathtaking view of the galaxy's outer rim. He turned as they entered, his eyes reflecting a mix of wariness and relief. "Commander Hawkins," Scott said, extending his hand, "I'm glad you made it." Hawkins shook it firmly. "Tucker, you've led us on quite a chase." "I had my reasons," Scott replied, his gaze sweeping over the team. "But now I think it's time we pooled our resources. I have information that could turn the tide of this war." Over the next hour, Scott laid out everything he knew about Ludosian military tactics and technology. He interfaced directly with their secure systems, projecting holographic schematics of Ludosian ship designs and battle formations. "Their left flank is always the weakest," Scott explained, manipulating the hologram to highlight specific points. "It's a blind spot in their sensor array. Hit them there, and you can break through their lines." Dr. Reed leaned forward, his eyes wide with fascination. "Incredible. The implications for our shield technology alone." As Scott continued his briefing, Hawkins noticed a change come over the young man. The hesitation and uncertainty that had marked their previous encounters were gone, replaced by a quiet confidence and drive. "There's more," Scott said, his voice dropping low. "I've uncovered the location of a secret Ludosian research facility. They're developing weapons there that could change everything." The team exchanged glances, the weight of this revelation settling over them. Hawkins leaned forward, his voice urgent. "What kind of weapons?" Scott's eyes met his, grave and intense, the kind that could wipe out entire planets. The return journey to Earth was tense, filled with encrypted transmissions and hurried preparations. Upon their arrival, they were immediately ushered into a high-security briefing room deep within military command. Admiral John Blackwell stood at the head of the table, his weathered face set in grim lines as he surveyed the assembled officers and specialists. "Ladies and gentlemen, what we've learned today changes everything. We have a unique opportunity to strike at the heart of Ludosian military power, and we're going to take it." The plan that emerged was audacious in its scope. A two-pronged assault, a main fleet engagement to draw out the Ludosian armada, while a small infiltration team snuck into the secret research facility to sabotage their weapons development. "Commander Hawkins," Blackwell said, turning to face him, "you'll lead the infiltration team. Take Tucker, Reyes, and Donovan. Your objective is to get in, destroy their research, and get out. Understood?" Hawkins nodded, already mentally preparing for the mission ahead. "Yes, sir." As the briefing concluded, newly promoted Admiral Michael Torres approached Hawkins. "Jack," he said, clasping his shoulder, "I'll be commanding the fleet action. We'll give you all the cover you need. Just make sure you blow that facility sky high." The next few days passed in a blur of preparation and training. Scott worked closely with the team, sharing every scrap of information he had about Ludosian security systems and protocols. In quiet moments, Hawkins observed the young man, noting the conflict that still simmered beneath his composed exterior. Finally, the day of the operation arrived. Hawkins's team boarded their stealth insertion craft, each member double-checking their gear and running through final system checks. As they prepared for launch, Admiral Blackwell's voice came over the comm. "Godspeed, infiltration team," he said, his tone solemn. "The fate of Earth may well rest on the success of your mission. We're all counting on you." As the insertion craft detached from the carrier and slipped into the void of space, Hawkins turned to his team. "All right, people, we've trained for this. We know what's at stake. Let's go make history. The craft accelerated, carrying them towards their destination and into the heart of enemy territory. Ahead lay the Ladosian research facility, its secrets, and a confrontation that would shape the course of the war. As they approached, tension mounted in the cockpit. Each member of the team knew that the next few hours would determine not just their fate, but potentially that of all humanity. Humanity. The stealth craft slipped through the inky void, its advanced cloaking technology rendering it nearly invisible to Ladosian sensors. As they approached their target, a priority transmission from Earth Command cut through the tense silence. Admiral Blackwell's holographic form materialized in the cockpit, his expression grave. "Change of plans, team," he announced, his voice tight with urgency. "We've received critical intel from Taurus. He's discovered an alien artifact of immense power. This could be the key to ending the war." Hawkins leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "Sir, what about the research facility?" "It's no longer our primary objective," Blackwell replied. "Return to Earth immediately. We're convening an emergency strategy session." The journey back to Earth was fraught with speculation and nervous energy. Upon arrival, Hawkins, Scott, and the rest of the team were whisked away to a high-security briefing room deep within military command. Admiral Blackwell stood at the head of the table, surrounded by holographic displays showing star charts and complex data streams. "Ladies and gentlemen, what we've learned changes everything. Taurus has uncovered an artifact capable of shifting the balance of power in the galaxy." Over the next hour, they dissected the limited information available. The artifact's exact nature remained unclear, but its potential was undeniable. As the briefing concluded, a new mission took shape: Operation Pandora. "We're forming a specialized task force," Blackwell announced. "Commander Hawkins, you'll oversee the operation from Earth. Scott Tucker, Lieutenant Reyes, Dr. Reed, you'll be our boots on the ground. Your mission is to locate and secure this artifact before the Ladosians or anyone else can get their hands on it." Scott's eyes widened at the magnitude of the task before them. "Admiral, do we have any leads on its location?" Blackwell nodded, pulling up a holographic map of a distant star system. "Our analysis of Taurus's data points to this region. It's on the very edge of known space, largely unexplored." As the team pored over the mission details, engineers and technicians swarmed around their new vessel, the ESS Shadow. The sleek ship incorporated the latest advancements in human and reverse-engineered Ladosian technology, a testament to how far Earth had come since the war began. Dr. Reed marveled at the ship's specifications. Quantum entanglement communications, adaptive hull plating, enhanced sensor arrays. This ship is a technological wonder. While Earth mobilized its forces, the Ladosian High Command reeled from the loss of their secret research facility. In an opulent war room on the Ladosian homeworld, General Vex paced before a group of grim-faced officers. "This failure is unacceptable," Vex snarled, his scaled skin flushing with anger. "The humans have proven more resourceful than we anticipated. We must reclaim our advantage." He turned to a battle-scarred Ladosian with cybernetic implants. "Major Krell, I'm assigning you to lead our efforts to secure the artifact. You'll have our most advanced warships at your disposal. Do not fail me." Krell saluted, his cybernetic eye whirring as it focused on the holographic displays. "It will be done, General." As both Earth and Ladosian forces prepared for their race to claim the artifact, a third player entered the game. In a shadowy bar on Haven Station, Warlord Grimm of the Zar-Ak Confederacy received a coded transmission from one of his informants. The scarred mercenary leader's lips curled into a predatory smile as he decrypted the message. "So, the big boys are chasing after a new toy," he mused, his cybernetic hand clenching into a fist. "Time for the Zar-Ak to remind everyone why we're the most feared force in the galaxy." With a series of encrypted commands, Grimm mobilized his vast network of spies, informants, and mercenary fleets. The Confederacy's considerable resources pivoted towards one goal: beating both Earth and the Ladosians to the punch. Aboard the ESS Shadow, Scott Tucker and his team made final preparations for their jump to the target system. Lieutenant Reyes ran through pre-flight checks, her fingers dancing across holographic controls. "All systems green," she reported. "We're ready for the jump on your mark." Scott nodded, settling into the captain's chair. Despite the weight of responsibility on his shoulders, he felt a sense of purpose he'd been lacking since his escape from Ladosian space. "Initiate jump sequence. Let's go make history." The Shadow's engines hummed to life, tearing a hole in the fabric of space-time. In a flash of brilliant light, the ship vanished from Earth orbit, hurtling towards its destiny on the edge of known space. As they emerged from the jump, the target system sprawled before them. A massive debris field filled their view screens, the remnants of an ancient alien civilization scattered across millions of kilometers of space. Dr. Reed's eyes widened as he analyzed the incoming sensor data. Incredible. These ruins are millions of years old. The civilization that built them must have been far more advanced than anything we've encountered. Before they could begin their survey, alarms blared across the bridge. Lieutenant Reyes's hands flew across her console. "Multiple contacts! Automated defense systems are powering up!" Ancient weapons platforms, dormant for millennia, sparked to life. Beams of energy lanced out from hidden emplacements, forcing the Shadow into evasive maneuvers. Scott's mind interfaced directly with the ship's systems, his enhanced abilities allowing him to process the flood of data at superhuman speeds. "I'm detecting patterns in the energy signatures," he called out. "It's a code, a test of some kind." As Scott worked to decipher the alien defenses, the Shadow danced through a deadly maze of energy beams and guided projectiles. Lieutenant Reyes's piloting skills were pushed to their limits as she threaded the needle between chunks of debris and weapons fire. Slowly but surely, Scott unraveled the complexities of the alien code. The defenses began to power down, leaving a clear path deeper into the heart of the debris field. "I've got it," Scott announced, his eyes refocusing on the physical world. "There's a space station hidden at the center of this system. That has to be where the artifact is located." As they approached the station, new alarms sounded. Lieutenant Reyes's face paled as she read the sensor data. Multiple ships entering the system, Ladosian signatures, and something else. Looks like mercenary vessels. Scott's expression resolute as he realized the scope of the conflict about to unfold. "Seems we're not the only ones after this prize. All hands, battle stations. This is where the real test begins." The Shadow accelerated towards the alien station, even as enemy ships closed in from all sides. The race for the artifact had begun in earnest, with the fate of the galactic realm hanging in the balance. The Shadow hurtled towards the alien station, its advanced engines straining against the fabric of space-time. Inside the bridge, Scott's fingers danced across holographic displays as he guided the ship through the treacherous debris field. Lieutenant Reyes called out incoming enemy positions, her voice steady despite the chaos unfolding around them. As they approached the station, a massive hangar bay yawned open before them. Scott's enhanced reflexes allowed him to thread the needle, bringing the Shadow to a smooth landing inside the cavernous space. The moment the ship touched down, Scott was out of his seat. "Reyes, Reed, you're with me," he ordered, grabbing his gear. "We need to find that artifact before Krell or Grimm get their hands on it." The trio raced through the ancient corridors, their footsteps echoing off metal that hadn't felt a living touch in millennia. Dr. Reed's eyes widened as he took in the alien architecture, his scientific curiosity scarcely controlled. "This technology, it's beyond anything we've ever encountered," he breathed, running a scanner over the walls. A distant explosion rocked the station. "Looks like we've got company," Reyes said grimly, checking her weapon. They rounded a corner and found themselves face to face with a group of Ladosian soldiers, led by the imposing figure of Major Krell. His cybernetic eye whirred as it focused on Scott. Well, Krell sneered. "If it isn't our wayward experiment?" Before either side could open fire, a gravelly voice cut through the tension. Now, boys and girls, let's all play nice." Warlord Grimm stepped into view, flanked by a squad of heavily armed mercenaries. His scarred face twisted into a predatory grin. "We wouldn't want anyone to get hurt before we find our prize, would we?" The standoff was interrupted by a low hum that seemed to emanate from the very walls of the station. A hidden door slid open, revealing a chamber bathed in soft, pulsing light. In the center of the room stood a pedestal, and atop it rested an object that defied description, part machine, part crystal, and wholly alien. This was the artifact they had all come to claim. Scott felt an inexplicable pull towards the object. Without thinking, he stepped forward, his hand outstretched. Krell and Grimm both shouted warnings, but their words fell on deaf ears. The moment Scott's fingers touched the artifact, a surge of energy pulsed through the chamber. Scott's eyes widened as his enhanced mind made contact with something vast and ancient. A holographic map of the galaxy blazed to life above the artifact, crisscrossed with intricate lines connecting various star systems. It's a map," Scott gasped, his voice filled with awe. "A map of wormholes spanning the entire galaxy." The full implications of what he was seeing crashed over him. With this network, travel times between the farthest reaches of the galaxy would be reduced from years to mere moments. The strategic and economic impact would be staggering. Scott made a split-second decision. He closed his eyes and focused, using his unique physiology to establish a deeper mental link with the artifact. Instantly, his mind was flooded with an ocean of information, the collective knowledge of the long-extinct alien race that had created the wormhole network. The influx of data was overwhelming. Scott's legs buckled, and he collapsed to the floor. As he fell, the chamber's defensive systems sprang to life. An impenetrable energy barrier materialized, separating Scott and the artifact from the others. Krell roared in frustration, pounding his cybernetic fist against the shimmering barrier. Grimm's mercenaries opened fire, but their weapons had no effect on the alien force field. "Scott!" Reyes shouted, her face a mask of concern. She turned to Dr. Reed. "What's happening to him?" Reed's fingers flew over his datapad, analyzing the energy readings. I'm not sure. The artifact seems to be interfacing directly with his neural implants. The amount of data transfer is off the charts." Inside the barrier, Scott's mind raced through eons of history. He saw the rise and fall of the precursors, the ancient race that had created the wormhole network. He learned of their hopes for galactic peace and cooperation, and the safeguards they had put in place to prevent the network's misuse. As Scott processed this knowledge, the battle outside the station intensified. The ESS Shadow, under Commander Hawkins's remote command, weaved through waves of Ladosian and Zar-Ak ships. But with each passing moment, the odds stacked higher against the Earth vessel. Inside the chamber, tensions reached a boiling point. Krell's Ladosian forces squared off against Grimm's mercenaries, fingers tightening on triggers. Reyes and Reed found themselves caught in the middle, desperately trying to find a way to reach Scott. Suddenly, Scott's eyes snapped open. He rose to his feet, his gaze distant yet focused, as if seeing beyond the confines of the room. With a thought, he expanded the energy barrier, enveloping all present in its protective field. As weapons and technology were neutralized within the barrier, Scott addressed the assembled group. His voice carried the weight of ages, tinged with the knowledge of long-dead precursors. "This artifact, this network, it wasn't meant to be a weapon," he began. "The precursors built it to unite, not divide. They envisioned a galaxy where all species work together, using this network to foster understanding and cooperation." He turned to Krell, his gaze piercing. "The war between humans and Ladosians, it's meaningless in the grand scheme of things. We have an opportunity here to change the course of galactic history." Scott outlined his proposal for an interstellar council, one that would jointly control access to the wormhole network. As he spoke, the holographic map above the artifact shifted, showing the potential for a new era of peaceful expansion and trade. Krell's cybernetic eye whirred as he processed the implications. The battle-hardened Ladosian saw an opportunity to end a costly war while still securing a powerful position for his people. "I will bring this proposal to the High Command," he said slowly, his tone cautious but intrigued. Warlord Grimm stroked his scarred chin, a calculating look in his eyes. The prospect of controlling trade routes through the wormholes appealed to his profit-driven nature. The Zarak Confederacy might be interested in such an arrangement, he mused. As the gravity of the situation sank in, Scott felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. He turned his attention to the artifact, using his newfound abilities to broadcast a galaxy-wide message. Across countless worlds, in the depths of space and on ships locked in battle, beings of all species heard Scott's voice. He revealed the existence of the wormhole network and called for an immediate ceasefire. On Earth, Admiral Blackwell received the transmission just as he was about to order the fleet to abandon the mission and defend the colonies. His finger hovered over the command console as Scott's words echoed through the war room. The message concluded, leaving the galaxy in a state of uneasy silence. The fighting stopped, if only for a moment, as the implications of Scott's revelation rippled through every ship and planetary defense system. Back in the ancient chamber, Scott lowered his hand from the artifact. The enormity of what had just transpired hung heavy in the air. He looked at the assembled group, former enemies now faced with the prospect of becoming reluctant allies. "This is just the beginning," Scott said, his voice carrying a mix of hope and trepidation. "We have a chance to build something extraordinary, but it won't be easy. There will be resistance, skepticism, and countless challenges ahead." As if to underscore his words, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Dr. Reed's eyes widened as he checked his data pad. "Multiple ships entering the system," he reported. "It looks like everyone's coming to see what all the fuss is about." Scott took a deep breath, squaring his shoulders. The knowledge of the precursors burned within him, a reminder of the monumental task that lay ahead. As representatives from across the galaxy converged on their position, he knew that the real work was just beginning. The chamber hummed with tension and possibility. The artifact pulsed gently, a silent witness to the unfolding drama. In that moment, standing at the crossroads of history, Scott Tucker prepared to take the first steps towards a new galactic order. Scott Tucker stood at the center of Unity Station, his gaze fixed on the holographic display of the galaxy before him. The pulsing lines of the wormhole network crisscrossed the projection, a testament to the precursor's grand vision. As the newly christened Nexus Keeper, Scott felt the weight of that vision pressing down on him. "Incoming transmission from Earth," announced Lieutenant Sarah Reyes, her fingers dancing across the control panel. "It's Admiral Blackwell." The hologram flickered, replaced by the stern visage of Admiral John Blackwell. Deep lines etched his face, evidence of the sleepless nights spent overseeing the construction of Earth's first wormhole terminal. "Nexus Keeper," Blackwell nodded, the formal title still awkward on his tongue. "We've encountered another setback. The interface between our systems and the precursor technology is temperamental." Scott frowned. "What's the nature of the problem, Admiral?" "Power fluctuations. We can't maintain a stable connection for more than a few minutes at a time. Dr. Patel's team is working around the clock, but—" Blackwell's eyebrows furrowed. "There's also the matter of the protests." The camera panned, revealing a sea of angry faces outside the terminal. Signs bobbed above the crowd. "Earth for humans!" and "Stop the alien invasion!" Scott's heart sank. He had hoped that the prospect of instantaneous travel across the galaxy would be met with excitement, not fear. "Keep me updated, Admiral. We'll find a solution." As the transmission ended, Scott turned to find Dr. Marcus Reed approaching, his eyes alight with excitement. "Scott, you won't believe what we've discovered about wormhole travel's effects on Ladosian physiology. Their unique cellular structure actually—" A klaxon cut through the air, silencing Reed mid-sentence. Red warning lights bathed the command center in an eerie glow. "Multiple system failures detected," Reyes called out, her fingers flying over the controls. "Communications, life support, artificial gravity, they're all going haywire." Scott closed his eyes, reaching out with his enhanced senses to interface with Unity Station's core systems. A chaotic stream of data flooded his mind, fragmented and corrupted. This was no mere malfunction. "It's a cyber attack," he announced, eyes snapping open. "Sophisticated, unlike anything I've seen before." As if in response to his words, the gravity plating beneath their feet flickered. For a heart-stopping moment, everyone in the command center floated weightlessly before crashing back to the floor. "Trace the source," Scott ordered, helping Reed to his feet, "and get me a secure line to the council members. We need to contain this before—" The main view screen flared to life, displaying the face of Major Krell. The Ladosian's cybernetic eye whirred as he glared at Scott. "Explain yourself, Nexus Keeper. Our systems are under attack. Is this some human ploy to seize control of the network?" Before Scott could respond, another transmission cut in. The scarred visage of Warlord Grimm filled half the screen, his expression a mixture of rage and suspicion. "Interesting timing for a systems failure, isn't it? Just as my ships were preparing to dock for the ceremony." Scott raised his hands, trying to project calm. "This isn't the work of any one faction. We're all under attack. I need everyone to remain calm while we—" Static consumed the view screen as the communication systems failed completely. Scott turned to Reyes, his expression grim. "Lock down the station. No one enters or leaves until we get to the bottom of this." As Reyes carried out his orders, Scott retreated to a quiet corner of the command center. He placed his hand on a nearby console, closing his eyes as he established a deeper connection with the precursor systems. Instantly, he was adrift in a sea of data, surrounded by the echoes of an ancient civilization. Images flashed before his mind's eye. A united galaxy, worlds linked by shimmering wormholes, species cooperating in ways he could scarcely imagine. But there was something else, a looming shadow on the edges of this utopian vision. Scott pushed deeper, straining against the limits of his enhanced mind. Suddenly he saw it, a failsafe, hidden within the very fabric of the wormhole network. A final safeguard left behind by the precursors, designed to activate if their creation was used for conquest or destruction. His eyes flew open, the revelation leaving him breathless. The cyber attack, the malfunctions, they were symptoms of a much larger problem. The network itself was reacting to the conflicting agendas of those who sought to control it. "Dr. Reed," Scott called out, his voice urgent, "I need you to gather the council. There's something they need to know." As Reed hurried off, Scott turned his attention back to the holographic display of the galaxy. The pulsing lines of the wormhole network seemed to throb in time with his racing heart. He knew that the next few hours would determine the fate of not just Unity Station, but of countless worlds across the galaxy. In that moment, Scott Tucker, once a simple soldier, now the linchpin of humanity's future among the stars, steeled himself for the challenge ahead. The true test of the precursor's legacy was about to begin. Scott Tucker took a deep breath, steadying himself as he faced the assembled council members. The holographic displays flickered around them, casting an ethereal glow across the faces of human, Ladosian, and various alien representatives. "What I'm about to tell you will change everything we thought we knew about the wormhole network," Scott began, his voice carrying a weight that silenced the murmurs in the room. "The precursors built a failsafe into the very fabric of the system. It's not just a network. It's alive, in a sense, and it's reacting to our actions." The council chamber erupted in a cacophony of voices. Major Krell's cybernetic eye whirred as he processed the information. "Explain, Nexus Keeper. What exactly does this failsafe do?" Before Scott could answer, alarms blared throughout Unity Station. Lieutenant Sarah Reyes burst into the chamber, her face etched with urgency. "Sir, we've detected a massive fleet of cloaked ships converging on our position." As if on cue, the station shuddered under the impact of weapons fire. The holographic displays flickered, showing a swarm of ships decloaking around Unity Station and Earth's wormhole terminal. "It's Warlord Grimm," Reyes reported, her fingers flying over a tactical display. "He's launched a simultaneous attack on both locations." Scott's mind raced, processing the tactical data flowing through his enhanced senses. "Reyes, coordinate our defenses. We need to repel boarders and protect the station's critical systems." The lieutenant nodded sharply and sprinted from the room, already barking orders into her comm unit. The sounds of battle echoed through the station's corridors, the sharp whine of energy weapons and the dull thuds of hand-to-hand combat. Scott turned back to the council members, many of whom were now on their feet, demanding answers or calling for immediate action. "We don't have time for debate," he said, his voice cutting through the chaos. "I need to interface directly with the precursor systems. It may be our only chance." Without waiting for a response, Scott strode to the central console and placed his hands on its smooth surface. He closed his eyes, reaching out with his mind to connect with the ancient technology that pulsed at the heart of Unity Station. A flood of information washed over him, nearly overwhelming his enhanced senses. Scott pushed deeper, searching for something he knew must exist. There, hidden within the station's systems, dormant for millennia. Scott's eyes snapped open. "Everyone, brace yourselves!" The station hummed with power as hidden weapon platforms, concealed within nearby asteroids, sprang to life. Beams of energy lanced out, cutting through the Zaryak fleet with surgical precision. On the tactical displays, Scott watched as the battle shifted. The Zaryak ships, caught off guard by the ancient defenses, began to break formation. But the fight was a long way to go. "Dr. Reed," Scott called out, spotting the scientist hunched over a console. "What's the status of our systems?" Reed's face was grim as he looked up. "It's not good, Scott. These cyber attacks, they're not Zaryak in origin. I think it's General Vex and his loyalists. They're trying to sabotage the entire project." Scott's mind raced, weighing options and potential outcomes. The station shuddered again as another volley of Zaryak weapons found their mark. He made his decision. "We're activating the wormhole network, now." The council chamber erupted in protests and questions, but Scott was already in motion. His hands flew over the controls, initiating the power-up sequence for Earth's wormhole terminal. "Sir," Reyes's voice crackled over the comm, "we're still under heavy attack. Activating the network could destabilize the entire station." "Trust me, Lieutenant," Scott replied, his fingers dancing across the console, "and tell Admiral Blackwell to prepare for immediate transit." Energy surged through Unity Station as the wormhole sprang to life. The swirling vortex of the activated network created a massive gravitational disturbance, sending the Zaryak fleet into disarray. Their cloaking devices flickered and failed under the strain. Seizing the moment, Scott opened a channel to Earth. "Admiral Blackwell, the wormhole is active. Bring the fleet through now." The tactical display lit up as Earth ships emerged from the wormhole, catching the Zaryak in a devastating crossfire. The tide of battle turned as the combined Earth-Ladosian fleet demonstrated their newfound alliance, their complementary tactics overwhelming the mercenary forces. Inside Unity Station, the fighting intensified. Scott could hear the sounds of combat drawing closer to the council chamber. Suddenly, the doors burst open and Lieutenant Reyes entered, her uniform scorched and a determined look in her eyes. "We've cornered Warlord Grimm in the main control room," she reported, "but he's threatening to overload the station's power core if we don't meet his demands." Scott nodded grimly. "I'm coming with you. It's time to end this." As they made their way through the battle-scarred corridors of Unity Station, Scott's enhanced senses picked up the ebb and flow of the precursor technology all around them. He could feel the network responding to the conflict, its ancient systems humming with untapped potential. They reached the main control room to find Warlord Grimm surrounded by his remaining mercenaries. The Zaryak leader's scarred face twisted into a sneer as he saw Scott. "So the great Nexus Keeper graces us with his presence," Grimm spat. "Come to watch as I tear down everything you've built?" Scott stepped forward, his hands raised in a gesture of peace. "It's over, Grimm. Your fleet is in ruins. Surrender now, and we can end this without further bloodshed." Grimm's laugh was harsh and bitter. "You don't understand, do you? I found out about the failsafe. The network needs conflict to fully activate. I'm doing you a favor." In that moment, Scott felt a surge of energy from the precursor systems. The failsafe was activating, but not in the way any of them had expected. He closed his eyes, reaching out with his enhanced senses to connect with the ancient technology. The wormhole network pulsed with power, reconfiguring itself before their very eyes. On the holographic displays, they watched as new connections formed between worlds, optimized not for military advantage, but for the potential of peaceful cooperation. Warlord Grimm's eyes widened as he witnessed the transformation. His shoulders slumped, the fight draining out of him as he realized the futility of his plans. "It wasn't supposed to be like this," he murmured, dropping his weapon. As Reyes and her team moved in to secure Grimm and his remaining forces, Scott turned his attention to the larger picture. The battle was over, but the real work was just beginning. The galaxy had changed forever, and it was up to them to shape the path forward. The Interstellar Council would need to reconvene, alliances would need to be forged, and the true potential of the wormhole network would need to be explored. Scott Tucker, once a simple soldier, now stood at the center of it all, ready to guide humanity and their new allies into an uncertain but promising future.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.